Okay, and we are recording.
Thank you.
No problem. So when Ashley sends out these PowerPoint slides, you'll be able to click that link, and that link will bring you to the Consumer Finance Bureau's website. And you have two options to be able to get the kit. So you can download it directly from their website, and it'll give you a PDF copy. I will say the PDF copy is 243 pages. So the other option that they offer you, which is free, is that you can actually order the kits, as you see right here, from them, and they are free. You're just subjected to the 4 to 5 week wait time. They say that you can get the wait time you can get them faster if you email them. So if that's an option that you want to try, you can do that as well. Wait. Too many. Okay. All right. So, and there are also different type of kits available. So there's English, Spanish, Chinese, and then additional resources. So as I said, she'll send out these slides and you'll be able to go through this, but this is also on their website as well. So to get into the meat of it, so what do these kits actually look like? So what I'll be going over is introduction to the toolkit, how to understand the situation, starting the money conversation, emotions, values, and culture. So what's behind our money choices. And in the actual kits, there are 9 modules, and these are the different topics that you get to go over with your participants. So you can go over setting goals and planning for large purchases, saving for emergencies, tracking and managing income, paying bills, getting through the month, dealing with debt, understanding credit reports and scores, money services, and protecting your money. So, what is financial empowerment? So, I would like to have like sort of a, an interactive conversation if anybody is down with that. But I'd like to know what you all feel is the definition for financial empowerment. What does that mean to you?
This is Brother Don. Maybe I would think that financial empowerment would be where your financial situation is not controlling you emotionally, and where you're feeling stress. So having control and empowerment, your life quality is a lot better.
Yes. Okay, I love that definition. Anybody else have anything to add? Okay, so thank you for that, Brother Don. So yes, empowerment is the process of increasing people's capacity to make choices and transform those choices into actions and desired results. And what that means is basically giving people the knowledge and the tools that they need to be able to make decisions when financial crises arise. That's usually one of the biggest showstoppers that occur if you don't understand what type of resources or access that you have to information. It limits your capacity to be able to make these choices that can actually transform your situation. So it's a combination of building personal knowledge about money and also adding the ability to manage money and use applicable financial services and products. And that's what equals financial empowerment. So financial empowerment and resilience. So I know at the C-Learn luncheon meeting that we had a couple of weeks ago, we talked about the definition of resilience. And with this, they've combined the definition of resilience with what financial empowerment means. So resilience is the ability of a system, a community, or society exposed to hazards to resist, absorb, accommodate, adapt to, transform, and recover. And so adding financial empowerment in with that gives them the ability to make to have long-term money management skills and more financial resources that add to that resilience. So being able to find these resources. So throughout this program, this month, you're going to find out how we all fit together. So financial empowerment, physical health, mental health, and disaster preparedness. So how does this work? How do you decide where someone needs the financial empowerment, right? So depending on your client's situations, you may be able to help them take those first steps. So what do those first steps look like? It could be for someone how to save money. It could be how do I establish an emergency savings fund? How do I get and use my tax refunds? So these are some of the first steps that participants are going to need help with identifying, because most of the time they don't connect their situation with what their actual issue is. So if you come across someone who is living paycheck to paycheck and they won't be able to pay a bill or something like that, then maybe they don't know that one of their first steps could be trying to establish an emergency fund or setting goals and calculating how much money they need, because maybe they're not making enough money or maybe they're not tracking the money that they're using. So being able to understand where they are and then help them take the first step in the right direction for their particular situation. So, as a trusted source of information and resource, you as organizational leaders are in a good position to provide financial empowerment services to the people you serve, because you will have access to the toolkit and they trust you. And trust is a huge component when it comes down to finances. I tell people all the time, your finances show your life. They show what you do, how you live, what you spend money on, what you like to do, or for lack thereof, dislike to do. And it becomes a trust situation when you have to reveal your financial situation to people. So you all are in a position where you'll have the access and you're building the trust, and that will allow you to provide opportunities for financial empowerment. So I'm going to walk through some of the information in the toolkits. And the first thing that I would like to say is on the first page, I showed you all that there are 9 modules to the toolkit. The goal is not to cover all of the tools with each person. Instead, it is finding the right module or tool based on their most pressing financial empowerment problem and the area or the area in which they've expressed interest in getting more help. And one of the things that I tend to find about a lot of different financial resources out there is they overload people. They give so much information, but it's not specific information. And so the goal of this toolkit, the goal of these modules, and the goal of the training is going to be to help you all get to the specific problem so you can help them address whatever it is that they're going with specifically, instead of giving them a 243-page toolkit. So how can you actually do this? So the first tool that will be in your toolkit is a financial empowerment checklist. This checklist is pretty much going to help you figure out like what information that they have, what information you've covered with them. So this will be like your tracking sheet to be able to keep on each individual. So let's say if you actually have an individual that needs all 9 modules, right? This sheet will allow you to be like your progress report, essentially. You'll be able to check off, hey, we discussed this, we worked on this, and you'll be able to provide notes. And that way, if you all keep charts or anything like that, you can have this as a tracking mechanism. So this is going to be for the use of you all as the organization. The next tool is going to be what you can utilize to actually help you figure out where the participants are. So there are multiple financial empowerment self-assessments in here. There are 3. The first one asks them different questions about what do you know. So this will help you figure out where they are right now. So as you can see, for like some of the examples right here, it says one of the questions they're asked is, are goals not important to financial planning or budgeting? So depending on how they answer the questions in each part has about 10 questions on it. So depending on how they answer those questions, the answer key will let you know which module they should be focusing on depending on how they answered the questions true or false. So if they said true for that one, then that means you would be going over module 1 with them for sure. If they answered false, then you can move past that module because it seems like they might understand that topic, so it might not be as pressing. So then the part 2 of the financial empowerment self-assessments is how you feel. So it'll help them identify different areas in their own financial life so you can get a feel of what they're going through. And then part 3 is their experiences. So what have they been through when it comes down to financial products, financial services, and different issues. So that way you can know how to educate them. So I love this 3-part self-assessment because it presents the information in a clear way to them. It presents it in a way that they will understand it, and it also gives you an opportunity to take a peek into what they're thinking without being probing or asking questions. So this says, if financial empowerment is not a part of your regular discussions, knowing when to bring up the topic can be a challenge at first. And I wholeheartedly agree with this. And as I said, with this toolkit, I would encourage everyone to be able to just go and download it and look through it yourself. So you can see what different tools and tricks that you can use. Because as I said earlier, financials and money is just a hard topic for anyone. So just going up to someone and saying, hey, let's talk about your money. Most people might be apprehensive to that. And then it's also because most people might think that they're being judged. So there are some tools that they have that'll help you so like this one is My Money Picture, where they can say where they're going and where they want to be. This is how you can make an easy transition by talking about their dreams and their goals and different things that they want to do in their lives. And then that helps you segue to that money conversation. So if someone tells you that they want to buy a house, then one of your questions could be, well, hey, how does your credit look? So you're not you're not giving them a laundry list of things that they would have to do to be prepared for buying a house, but you're just having that conversation where it's easing them into having a money conversation. So financial empowerment opportunities in common situations. So if you're working with a couple on strengthening their relationship, it becomes clear that different spending habits and attitudes are a source of conflict. So I'm actually dealing with this right now with a couple where their financial outlooks are on the opposite spectrum. One is west and one is east. And trying to bring them together. And what I've learned in dealing with this couple is that it's not actually it's not actually about their knowledge of money. It's their understanding and how to implement, because they both want the same goals, but it's about bringing them to a common ground. So these are just a list of different situations where having that, not only having that knowledge, but knowing how to utilize that knowledge in your current situation is going to be helpful. So if you are working with that couple, it's getting them both on the same page on, hey, we both have the same goals. Our ultimate goals are the same. But how can we use the knowledge that we have to reach those goals, given the fact that we have conflicting attitudes and habits? Or if you're dealing with an individual who lands a new job and she doesn't understand how direct deposit works, and whether or not it'll be a good idea, being able to explain the benefits of dropping your check in a bank. And I know it sounds like, oh, that really doesn't happen in this day and age, but there are actually a lot of people who have a misconception of banks and what they can do or what they will do when it comes down to your money. So being able to actually, so one of the modules is explaining to them how the system works, different financial institutions work. So being able to explain that to the participants, they'll be able to make a decision about whether or not they'll put their money in a bank and get direct deposit. So these are just different examples of how, if you run across these type of situations, how you can actually attack them, or I won't say attack, but help them, and be able to empower their individual situation. So these are some examples of how you can introduce money conversations with clients. So I'm not sure if you all can actually see this because I know it's a bit tiny, but there are mainly three different ways that you can have these conversations. So the first way is responding when someone initiates a conversation. So let's say if you all are having a meeting with a participant and they mention that they're late on their one of their bills. So this is Aaliyah responding when people initiate. You can have that conversation with Aaliyah without being aggressive, and making it more of a calm conversation where you're still asking the same questions, but it's not what you say, it's how you say it. So Aaliyah's example is, my utilities are due, but I don't get my next paycheck for 5 days, so I'm broke. You know how it is, and I'm going to be late with electricity again. So instead of saying, like, freaking out on their behalf, right, all that does is heighten their anxiety. So instead, you can start asking different questions to try and get down to the root of, is this a consistent problem that you're having? So the transition question was, I know being late means fees. Are you in danger of getting your electricity cut off? So the reason you would ask that is because that can feed into, has this been a long-term situation going on, or is this a one-off thing? So she answers and says it's more like a one-off thing. But then the next question comes saying, well, she's not entirely sure if she actually would be able to pay the bill even when she gets paid. So that's one of the ways to be able to ease into the financial situation without you having to bring it up, just paying attention to the cues that they drop. The next option is broadening the conversation. So this is when someone tells you something that's indirect about money, but it's direct. So this example is about someone who got a new job. And you can go down the road of, do you have direct deposit set up? Or you can go down the road of, so is this job are you gonna be making enough to support your lifestyle? So these are different ways that you can take that a broad conversation and kind of narrow it down to a situation, to start breaking it down to a specific situation for your participants to try and drill down to make sure that they've thought all the way through it. Because most people apply for jobs and they accept jobs, but sometimes those jobs don't give them what they need to be making. And then they can fall into a quote unquote job remorse situation where now they don't like their job anymore because they're not making enough, and then they're not paying attention and they're not giving all of their energy. So being able to just use a broad topic, even if you hear someone says, oh, I'm applying for jobs, like make it trying to drill into the money piece of it to see if they've thought about all of the factors that go into getting a job, let alone starting a job. And then the last one is making the most of short-term contacts. So this one is just going and talking about short-term meetings, like empowering people financially during short-term meetings. So this is if you are, like that example is a tax profession. So if that tax profession is only meeting with this person one time a year, maybe twice during the tax season, just making the most of those type of conversations that you end up having with people, and making sure that they understand all of the financial implications that can come along with whatever that short-term decision is that they're about to face. So here are some additional things to consider when talking about money with clients. And this is one of the biggest pieces that I tend to focus on when I'm talking to clients. So in your modules, you will have a component that talks about dreams, goals, and lifestyle choices. I like starting with that piece first instead of talking about bills and credit and saving money, because emotions literally run your finances. Most people make emotional decisions. They decide to do things, to not do things based off of their most emotions. And so I try and reel people in by understanding what their dreams are, what their goals are, what is it that they want to do, how do they actually view money, and then also going back to like how have you perceived money like growing up, because we learn two ways. We learn from the information we're given and then the information we see. So how have you seen money handled? And I like addressing those type of situations. And then it also gives me an opportunity to bring to their attention how some decisions they might have made are emotional instead of an actual sound financial decision. So as I said, with these modules, you can break them up. You'll know your participants. You'll be able to figure out what's the best approach to take with Amy versus the best approach to take with Bob, because everybody won't take the same approach. Everybody won't take the information the same way. So, as I said, financial situations are influenced by emotions, values, and culture. And you ask the type of questions to understand what's behind someone's financial situation. So if you have a participant who walks in and they tell you that they decided, oh, that they were not going to pay a bill because let's say they wanted to go out somewhere, and you start trying to find out and understand like why did they make that decision, and maybe it boils down to they just were tired and they're always paying bills and they wanted to treat themselves, right? And so you explain to them that treating yourself is not a problem, but that's something that we can work into a budget, so you wouldn't have to forego a bill just to be able to say you treated yourself, because treating yourself will probably last for that moment, but now you've just added an additional stressor on your plate, because now you have to figure out how to pay that bill that you ended up skipping out on. So being able to understand what's behind decisions that people make instead of assuming what's behind it, because your rationale for doing something might not be the same as my rationale for doing something. So um never making an assumption about why people chose to do what they do, just being able to hear them out. And then keeping your personal values in check. So one of the biggest things when it comes down to money, I tell everybody, you have to have a poker face when you're talking to people about their finances, because there are some things that you might see as common sense, but if somebody has never been exposed to it, they don't see it that way. So you never want your expression or the way that you see things to come across in a conversation, because your job and my job is to train and educate, to help them give them the knowledge to be able to make better decisions, not to say you should have known, and especially to make sure that our emotions or our reactions don't show that we feel like you should have known better. Because when you make people feel as though you're judging them when it comes down to their money decision, then they'll retreat and they'll make excuses as to why whatever it is that they did was the best decision, and then they won't change. And our goal is to to empower everybody so they can change and make better decisions. So next, we're going to talk about information on specific topics and tools that you can use. That's tongue tied. That you can use with your clients. So tool 1 is SMART goals. So when you are sitting down with your clients, one of the things I encourage everyone to do is to get them to create SMART goals. And you would have to give them examples of what an actual SMART goal is, right? Because they might sit down and say, okay, well, I want to buy a house. Okay, that's a goal. But the whole purpose and the reason you utilize SMART goals is because they are actually action steps. Each letter is an action step that's going to actually make you stay on target. If you just say that you want to buy a house, then that's probably going to give you a week's motivation at tops. Versus if you said it specifically, I want to buy a house by the end of December, you're making it measurable. Maybe that's attainable in your situation. You're making it relevant to you, because then you be a little bit more specific with it. Maybe the type of house, the area that you want to live in, how much money would you need to be able to do this? What are the steps that you have to take to be able to get this house? So encouraging your participants to get to try and hit all of these measures when they're creating SMART goals, because when you have all of these measures, you start losing excuses. If I say I want to buy a house and a year later somebody asks me, oh, I thought you said you were going to buy a house, you can say a whole bunch of different reasons as to why you didn't do it, because you never set it to be specific or measurable or attainable or relevant. Versus once you put parameters on your SMART goals, then if someone asks you, then let's say if it's a year later and you still haven't done it, maybe it was the fact that the time frame you gave yourself wasn't attainable. I had to push my time frame back because I wasn't able to save money by that time. That lets you know that the person is still engaged with that goal as well. So these are some of the examples that they have. So I'd like to buy a new television. That's vague. Versus I will save $400 and purchase a new television in 6 months. And then the second one, I want to get out of credit card debt. I will pay down $1,000 of my debt over the next 18 months. Now, when you are meeting with people, one of the biggest ones you might come across is going to be a debt related situation. And I would definitely say it is worth getting them to set small goals like this $1,000 versus I will pay off all of my debt, because all is in some situations a nice chunk of change. But one thing that I try and get people to understand, that if you could have paid it all, you probably would have paid it all. So your circumstances might not allow you to pay it all. So making smaller goals to reach, I want to pay down this much by this time frame, will also give them little wins and encourage them to keep going. Because if you set a goal that says all, and then you don't meet all, but let's say you've knocked down half, but because you sold yourself all, and your mental, that's all you're thinking. I didn't hit all, so I failed. Versus I want to hit 25%. And when you hit 25% and you're struggling to get to 50%, that 25% win is still there, and it'll encourage you to keep going to the 50 because you've already hit one of the goals versus a whole just saying all. So once the goals are determined, you create an action plan to help you reach those goals. So as I said, if someone tells you that they want to buy a house, credit repair might be looking over your credit report to see if you are eligible as far as credit wise, looking up your debt to income ratio. So like, these are the type of action steps, maybe sending them to a first time home buyer class. These are the type of action steps you can help them create to be able to actually reach those goals. So if the goals require money, you can use a breakdown of a weekly amount that they would need to be able to save, or a monthly amount, just depending on whatever their situation is. If you're working with someone, and like, I'll give you an example. I had a client who I told her I need her to save $500 a month. That completely freaked her out when I said that. And so I broke it down into a smaller goal that she was able to work with and accept better than me saying $500 a month. It still works out to $500 a month, but being able to know your participants and also see their reaction to things that you say, and breaking it down to an amount that'll be workable for them. So like you see the example here where it says, I will save $50 within 6 months to start an emergency fund. For somebody who lives paycheck to paycheck, or who don't make enough to live paycheck to paycheck, $50 might seem like a lot. But if you tell them $2 a week, then they'll be like, oh, you know what? I can figure $2 a week out, versus you want me to look at this big number of $50. So it's just about being able to understand who you're talking to and just meeting them where they are, essentially. So just reviewing goal setting, you would brainstorm with them a list of hopes, wants, and dreams, help them create SMART goals. And then after they create SMART goals, create an action plan that'll help them achieve the SMART goals, and then figure out a weekly savings target or a monthly savings target. Savings target, sorry. And so then tool 2 is planning for life events and large purchases. So when it comes down to this piece, there are a lot of life events and large purchases that people don't normally take into account when it comes down to life. And a house is one of those. A house and a car are usually one of the top 2 that everybody know as far as large purchases. But most people don't think about, like, say if you have a teenager and they're coming up on age 16. Well, most teenagers want a sweet 16 party. So I had someone who I was working with who literally drained her savings to throw this party for her daughter right when we were starting her process of financial planning, and that set her back for 6 months because she didn't get a chance to plan for this. So being able to go over the list of life events and large purchases with your participants and get them to start thinking about things that might come up. Because again, financial empowerment is about having the knowledge, but also being able to apply it in different situations. And we don't want participants to be in a constant mindset of reactive. So these tools are going to start helping them get into a more proactive mindset. Like, oh, I know that I'm going to be starting a new job soon. So maybe I need to start saving, because when you leave one job and go to another job, there might be a month delay with pay because of how the payroll systems are set up. So I might be missing a paycheck. So I need to start planning for that now. Or if I'm going to be moving, what comes along with moving? It's not just paying a deposit and rent. It's also about getting people to help me, getting movers to move my appliances. My bills might go a little higher. So just getting people, getting the juices flowing for these type of things that we come up with. And I would say this might be a tough conversation to have with participants, but I would say even broaching the conversation of having a death in the family, retirement, and final expenses. One of the biggest things that I've seen arise with in the last couple of years are GoFundMe's, because people did not plan for their family members to pass away, so they couldn't afford the funeral expenses. And now you have families who are going into debt over different situations like that. And it could be as simple, that could be a simple fix such as getting a life insurance policy just to be able to cover those expenses, and explaining to participants that you can get something that costs little to none, because there are some programs out there that offer life insurance up to $50,000, depending on what, if you're below a certain income threshold. And that's not enough to make anybody rich, but it's enough to be able to cover any final expenses that might occur. So being able to have them have those conversations and understand the importance of it, and not leaving that burden to the family and or friends when they pass away, and accessing those free or reduced resources that are out there. So when discussing goals and planning for large purchases, consider how much time you have with your client and introduce tools that would be useful within that time frame. So if you have a 10-minute session, then you'll do something like the goal setting tool. But if you have a 30-minute or longer session, you can do the goal setting tool and planning for life events and large purchases. And if you have follow-up sessions, multiple sessions, then you'll be able to touch on more items. So some people may need more help than you are equipped to provide. And this is where knowing how to use your organization's resources and referral network will be important. So key takeaways: only refer people to organizations that have expertise in the area for which you are referring them to. And basically, you all understand what that means. Don't send them to an organization that's basically going to make them feel defeated. We have a lot of organizations here in New Orleans. There are a lot of national resources as well, but just making sure that you're partnering your participants with an organization that will help them grow, rather than push them through the ringer or give them false information or stall the process. You don't want them to ever feel like, oh, you just sent me away to somebody who doesn't even want to help me. Also, make sure that the organization has the time and interest to meet with people and assist them. Make sure that they are objective which means that they can show people the potential positive and negative consequences of a specific action. So not just consistently beating someone down, giving them a negative, give them both sides of it. So that way they can make an adequate decision. They can put these tools to use, and definitely making sure that they're not selling a product or a service for the participants to get help. So if they say, oh, I'll help you, but for you to get this package or this service, this is where the cost is going to come in. So the goal, that's still a defeating mentality. That'll help with the defeating mentality. Like, I can't afford this, so I can't do this. I can't better my life. I'm just going to continue doing what I'm doing. And so with that being said, next week, we're going to go over saving for emergencies. But does anyone have any questions for me? We have about a good 15 minutes. Does anybody have any specific questions they would like to go over as I'm trying to figure out how to get back to the question portion? So if you have questions, you can say it instead of typing it, because I do not see the chat box on my screen at this present moment. Oh, wait, I might have found it. Hello?
No question. Did someone have a question?
I just might make a comment. I can already see opportunities in our food assistant program at St. Anna's for families who are living maybe not paycheck to paycheck, but living off of their assistance checks and so forth, and where they feel like they can never see daylight, but at a very small scale of a starting point of a little bit of saving money, if they're, to have a conversation like that, this type of thing would be helpful, and then empower them a little bit to make them feel like they're getting somewhere.
Yeah, and there are multiple different little saving techniques that start off with save $1 this
Right.
week, and then $2 this week, and then $3 this week. Those are huge growth tools that allow people to just feel, when I tell you, so empowered, because they're like, oh my gosh, I can do this. And it starts feeling like they're making a difference, like there's change to come. So it's just like I said with the telling them $50 versus $1. Like
Right.
$50 might sound intimidating to someone who only has $50 left over, and they still have to buy gas or buy groceries, versus me saying, hey, let's start with $1. Like in this week, let's go up to $2, and just empowering them that way with those baby steps. Like, it makes a true difference mentally for someone feeling encouraged and saying, hey, I can actually do this.
Thank you for sharing this.
No problem. So does anyone else have any questions? Well, Ashley?
All right. So thank you guys for joining us today. Tomorrow will be our housing presentation that is facilitated by Gail Ratliff from O's Not Men. So same place, same time tomorrow. If you guys have any questions in the meantime, feel free to email me. Also, this should be loaded up probably by the end of today, at the latest tomorrow morning. So thank you all, and have a great day.